Christi and Rhys, I will hand it over to you.
Well, we are very excited about having this conversation today. As Alex mentioned, please, don't hesitate to come off mute, stuff like that. I think one of the things that we find is like super valuable in these is like Alex and I both generally hate all consultants because we think most people in our profession are terrible human beings and somehow we are consultants. But part of the reason why we hate them with just a seething passion is they tend to just talk in high levels. So we try and whenever we're doing kind of these webinars, try and give specific stuff like, I can take this away and go do this tomorrow. So hopefully our definition of success coming out today is you learn a handful of things about Outbound and can kind of run at something in your existing business coming out of this. What's also cool about this is we actually ran a very similar webinar about a year ago. Outbound is one of these kind of like topics, particularly kind of in the go-to-market space that is like changing so rapidly with AI. It is so hard. The number of our clients are kind of constantly talking about this. So we thought it'd be fun to run this again because this is a lot of requests. So I want to do a quick introduction here. So Christi is a dear friend of ours. She runs a organization called Howdy Sales, which is a outbound specific pipeline generation organization and is like one of the best leading experts in the space here. Christi, you want to give a 30-second TLDR?
Yeah, for sure. So I spent about a decade in sales and marketing roles at high growth tech companies back when you could send a cold email and actually book a meeting off of step one, and have since turned entrepreneur, acquired a business, now doing Howdy Sales. So I've kind of seen it all, how everything's played out over the years, and have a few battle wounds from it, and I'm excited to share where we are today.
Well, thank you so much for joining. We always appreciate the insights, and it's going to be a great conversation. For those of you who are not familiar with Domestique, or who Alex and I are, we're the two founders of Domestique. We're a revenue operations consulting company. So whenever we talk RevOps, we think across the customer journey, strategy, process, tools, data enablement in that order. Part of the reason why we love topics like this around Outbound, it heavily plays into things around your go-to-market strategy and the process, all that type of good stuff. So it's also very apt since a lot of companies are going through FY26 planning right now and thinking about how do we generate more pipeline. Outbound, how do we kind of optimize that? So excited about the conversation today. We're going to do our best to kind of learn from Christi all the tips and tricks. So kind of quick level set on what we're going to chat through today. We're going to spend just a couple minutes talking about why Outbound is typically so hard for most customers. We're going to talk about how Outbound has changed, not only this year in 25, but what's it going to look like in FY26. And then we're going to get into kind of like three major sections. So we're going to talk about tooling, the different kind of buckets inside Outbound. What are some of our favorite tools? We'll talk about what we recommend, what's kind of a crawl, walk, run version of this. Two is kind of sequencing and structuring. How should you design your sequences? Three is messaging. And then we put Q&A at the end, but as Alex mentioned, much rather have the Q&A throughout. I think it leads to a much more organic conversation. So, and if you have any questions, this is being recorded. It'll be up on our website afterwards. Don't hesitate to reach out. You'll get an email from one of us and all that type of good stuff. So diving into the customer, why is Outbound so hard? We get this question all the time, and we get it from our VC and private equity partners. We get it from our customers themselves of like, hey, look, we got to drive more pipeline next year, right? The classic conversation we're going through today is we want to grow, we want to do $1 million in sales next year. Our close rate is 25%. So we need $4 million in pipeline. Of that $4 million, marketing is generating half of that. Where is that other half going to come from? Oh, hey, we need some of it to be outbound, and so on and so forth. Why is it so hard? Couple of interesting things here is like, what you see on the right-hand side, this is a typical customer journey, right? Map that you normally see. What's interesting is I was actually going through, as we were prepping for this, looking for a bunch of different customer journey maps. Most of them have, you kind of see the arrows pointing towards the top of like discovery, awareness, engagement, evaluation. Most of them have very similar steps, but there's a missing step here. And that's the whole, like, I don't know if I have a problem, right? It's individuals at organizations who may not know that they even have a problem. So as you're thinking about outbound in general, oftentimes outbound is being targeting kind of two different phases inside your customer journey. One, I don't even know that I have a problem. And then the second phase is kind of this discovery and awareness phase. And what's interesting is Christi and I were having a long conversation about this in prep for this. And Christi, you brought up a very interesting thing about thinking about outbound and kind of two work streams of this kind of value add content plus outbound. You want to kind of like walk everybody through specifically what you mean by that.
Yeah. So these days, and I alluded to it a little bit, like you can't just send someone a cold message and say, I bet you have this problem, and guess what? We are the perfect solution for you. Do you want a demo, or do you want a meeting? Immediate delete. So today, what is really working well is you have to have a voice out in the world before people are going to give you the credibility to even entertain a reply to your email or your message or what have you. So what people are doing these days is, it used to be called, or it can be called like lead magnets or thought leadership or something like that. But the point is having content out in the world on LinkedIn, on X, on YouTube, wherever your target buyers exist. That is the first step to educating people from a personal standpoint, not a company standpoint. So when I say value added content, oftentimes this is individuals posting from their individual accounts, not a corporate account, because people follow people. And there is a ton of credibility that's built before someone is even potentially interested in even learning about you. And they don't even know that there's a problem until you've been talking for 3 months on LinkedIn. And then they start realizing like, oh, actually, this might pertain to me. So I really think that sometimes we hear this called like inbound led outbound, and that's fine. The point is you need to put things out in the world and earn that right to a conversation these days.
So, Christi, I'm very curious here. As you're working with organizations, when you come in, obviously a lot of the work that you and your team do is primarily around designing the outbound side.
Mm-hmm.
As you think about this, like, and I love the comment, I want to make sure everybody heard, people follow people, not brands. When you come into those organizations, is one of your recommendations, hey, Acme Corp, we need Susie Q, head of marketing, Joe Schmo, head of sales, to start getting on LinkedIn and or X or whatever it is and start kind of like pumping out. So what is that recommendation around some of that value add content?
Yeah, so it's a bit twofold. Now, we are specifically running the outbound execution arm, right? So we are not producing content. We are not doing any of that as a service right now. But what I do tell people is if you want to see an increase in your outbound performance, you do need to post. You need to have this voice, put out insights and ideas for the world to understand. So we do always recommend it. Now, whether or not people do that is another thing, because it is a lot of work, and you have to be very, very consistent in it. And truthfully, sometimes I'm not even consistent in it. The other piece, though, that is a little bit more directly pertaining to outbound is that I do always recommend that our clients come up with, if they don't have it already, some sort of, I'll call it like a freebie or some sort of offer that de-risks the interaction. So if I were to, immediately come out in an outbound message and like pitch slap someone and ask for time, that doesn't work these days. But if I offer to give them something, no strings attached, you don't even have to talk to me in email number one, that can be a really good way to just crack open the door. So we do talk to our clients about like, okay, is there like, at the risk of sounding too simple, like free assessment, free audit, office hours, masterclass. For us, it's like a list of 25 contacts for you, and you can just have them, and I don't care, do what you want with them. So I think having something like that is a really important quote value add content piece too.
Love it. Mike, you got a question. Mike, you got a question there, sir? You're on mute.
I'm not used to, I'm used to so much Zoom that this one's a little new to me. Christi, I have a question on the balance of content on your personal LinkedIn account. I tend to use my personal LinkedIn account a lot about my personal side and not promote a particular business. Is there a particular percentage or a balance between what you put on your personal account that is related to you? Like in your world, it's about Wyatt many times. Talk to me a little bit about that, or us.
Yes, it's actually a very good question, because to build that audience and build that interest, I think it is really important that you humanize yourself. If you're just constantly posting about your own company or what you offer, your service, how amazing it is, like that is a little bit too salesy. Now, obviously, we all are in the business of self-promotion when we are on LinkedIn. That's just the nature of it. So I think that's okay. But I definitely try for, let's say I'm posting 3 times a week, at least one of those posts is going to be a little bit more personal about motherhood. And Wyatt, true story, was up for like an hour from midnight to 1 a.m. and like, here's a lesson learned. And like, you know, whatever the case may be. I think that actually really humanizes you and makes it even more interesting for someone to like have a chat with you, because you're actually showing a little bit of vulnerability, and the fact you're showing that you aren't just here to like sling your product or sling your service all the time. So I think a balance is really good.
When you say balance, is it 50-50?
I mean, it's hard to put a percentage to it. I would say like, at least if you're posting like weekly, at least one post should be more personal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think the takeaway here for everybody is kind of twofold. One, outbound in a silo without any kind of value add content from some of the individuals, and particularly that like human value add content is more challenging. 2, understanding where your prospects are in their customer journey, right? Are they completely cold? I don't know, I have a problem, or are they truly in the discovery awareness phase? Is actually very valuable as you start to think about targeting with outbound, which is a good segue into this next slide. So this is actually something we ran across here recently. As you think about this customer journey, the idea of being able to kind of segment your prospects into a couple of different buckets here. So Christi, you want to kind of walk us through this, and like, how do you think about this in terms of the segmentation of the potential customers you're going out to, you know, outbound to? How do you think about this segmentation?
Yes. So if we're thinking of it in terms of your traditional funnel, the ones at the top are going to be the people that match your firmographics in terms of your ICP. They check the boxes on title, on company size, on revenue, on geographic location, whatever the case may be. They're people that you ultimately could work with because they fit those criteria. But they may or may not even be in a buying cycle yet. They may, you know, as we've talked about, Rhys, like they may not even know that they have the problem yet. So this is a lot of general outreach focused not on selling, but on education, first and foremost. Then if we go one step down, you know, intent and signals are a little bit kind of all the rage right now, but we want to identify those that may be in a buying cycle of some kind, whether they are kicking the tires and doing some off-site research, or they had certain things recently happen at their company or with their job that might indicate that they are entering into a buying cycle. A lot of job change, new hiring kind of stuff comes into play here. Those people you can tailor maybe a little bit more specific message to say, hey, like, saw this, insert signal here, thought this might be interesting to you. Again, still very educational. We're not selling yet, but really trying to engage them a little bit more directly on the specific problem that you might be able to solve for them. Then you've got a little lower, right? The people who know about you. So they're visiting your website, they're filling out forms, they're clicking on links, they're downloading whatever, free guide you created or what have you, right? Those people are definitely ready for a more targeted message about, hey, this is exactly what we could do for you. So you get a little bit more like salesy, I would say, as you go down that funnel, but still being mindful of, again, we don't want to pitch slap anybody right out the gate.
And one interesting note here, Chris, you said something to me while we were kind of having our conversations leading into this. Is like, you said one of the biggest mistakes people make in their outbound is getting this part wrong, meaning how do they segment this? And if you think about like building your sequences / campaigns, it should be around where the individuals are in their customer journey of, I don't know, I have a problem, discovery awareness / engagement, and building the campaigns for each one of those. Is that correct? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like that was one of the things that resonated with me as you and I were having this conversation, where people screw this up the most.
Yeah, you do have to segment things out more. And the way that we do it, kind of our methodology, is to score every lead according to where they are in this funnel, kind of, so to speak. So if we've got people on our website, we see them come in, that's an automatic 10 points. Or, if they're showing intent with a research, a keyword that they're Googling, well, that's going to be 5 points. But for someone who doesn't even know we exist, like that, there's no number assigned, right? So you can kind of do it different ways, but finding a way to parse out where these leads are in your CRM or however you're managing it is, I think, really important to then build messaging.
And we're going to get into this conversation a little in greater detail here coming up, but like this concept of personalization versus relevance. But what you're essentially saying is scoring the accounts and the leads based upon relevance, not personalization.
Correct.
And the relevance being tied to the customer journey of where they're at in their buying process. Cool. All right, let's keep the conversation going. So we ran an outbound webinar, you and I, almost a year ago at this time. And a lot of the times I was looking back at it, like, I have changed significantly. So I love, like, walk us through the landscape. Like, where are we at today with outbound? What is this going to look like in 2026? And how do we need to think about it, right? So many organizations are trying to say, in the example that I gave earlier, right? They got to generate $1 million of pipeline, which is 25% of their total pipeline nut for next year. How do they think about this from a best practice standpoint?
Yes. So I would say this shift is already happening, but if we kind of parse it out into this year versus what I think is coming even next year. So ultimately, my stance is that the attention economy is no longer. It is so noisy in the world. Everyone can automate the heck out of their LinkedIn posts. They can write it with ChatGPT. They can put a lot of noise out there. And that ultimately creates a situation in which it's not necessarily about just getting attention, right? People are just ADHD looking at all their different apps and all these different things coming at them that, like, you're not fighting for that anymore. I also think that AI, while beneficial, can create a lot of hesitancy. I know immediately when I open an email that was generated by AI. They use M dashes. They use this syntax where it's like, no this, no that, just this. And it's like, oh gosh, like, this is ChatGPT written all over it. So there is just a lot of laziness that people are using AI for. Yes, cliches, like just terribly written emails. And that creates immediate barriers. Simultaneously, AI is very good. People are using merge tags left and right. for creating bad personalization. So AI could go out and scan your LinkedIn, pick up some one random nugget and write an opener line that is completely stupid and doesn't even matter to the conversation, but AI can do it. So everyone's getting these emails where it's like, okay, thank you for telling me like what year I graduated from the university I went to. Like, I didn't need to know that, and it doesn't matter. Congratulations for scraping the internet. Like, we're just in a place where I think that laziness, just that like call for attention, it doesn't work anymore. And it goes with the spray and pray model too, where it's like everybody's just blasting this, pardon me, shit out, and it doesn't work.
Can I just stop and say something? So I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correct. Personalization does not matter compared to relevance. Relevance is
Correct.
greater than personalization.
Yeah, because here's the thing, like you could be spying on me and tell me that I just had 4 pieces of pizza for lunch. Yes, I did. It was delicious. But like, if it's not relevant to the conversation, it does not matter. So like everyone's kind of trying to get this personalized angle, but we're taking a shot in the dark in doing so. So, and this is kind of like the methodology we like use is we're trying to find the relevant buying signals for any person or any company that we're reaching out to. And as long as they hit certain criteria, certain check marks, we know that they are a really good fit for what we're sending or what we're trying to communicate. Therefore, I don't really need to personalize because I've already checked the relevance box.
Which, just to make sure everybody's 100% clear with this, if we think about the customer journey, we can stop writing emails that essentially say, hey, Christi, love the fact you had 4 slices of pizza. It's more about where are you at? Are you in, I don't know, I have a problem? Are you in discovery and awareness? Or are you in engagement? And if we understand that, we can then create the messaging tied to the relevance, not the personalization.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. All right.
Absolutely.
Attention economy is dead. By the way, I get every morning 20 shitty emails that like I'm immediately like just deleting.
Yep.
What's this going to look like moving forward?
Yeah, I think this is already happening for sure, but it really comes down to trust and credibility and focusing on building that up, even ahead of any outreach, and using that within your outreach. So one thing that we're seeing work really well right now is scaling your partner network and your referral network. There are some really great tools. I'm happy to talk about them later to do this, but a lot of business these days is done by way of relationships. So but the problem I would say there, though, is everyone says, well, it's not scalable. It is. There are tools out there where you can map your network. You can see who is connected to your target market. You can ask for warm introductions. Like there are a lot of ways to figure out where your warm introduction paths are. It's kind of a different motion. You have to be diligent about it, but there are ways to scale that. And immediately those relationships are built on trust. So you're already one step ahead. I also think that showcasing a deep understanding of your prospects through whatever you're posting, through your website, through like just your online presence is extremely important these days when you can really speak to what resonates with your buyers or whether they're in a cycle yet or not. That builds a ton of trust. We've talked about relevance, huge. Like if someone were to send me an email, okay, so I'm pregnant and super nauseous. And if somebody were to send me an email and be like, hey, heard you're pregnant. Do you want a 5-pound bag of Sour Patch Kids? I'm happy to send it to you today. I'd be like, yes, sign me up. Like, absolutely, right? Like that's relevance. Personalized, but still extremely relevant. Like that's what we're really trying to dig into the relevance piece. And then again, it's that this is your line, Rhys, and I love it. It's the like do 1 million deposits and then withdraw, meaning give, then ask for time or, a calendar invite or, whatever. But we have to give first.
What's interesting about it is kind of like the Brene Brown analogy of like putting pebbles in people's jars. Mm-hmm. People never think about this from a sales standpoint, right? Like, yeah. We have to think about this more at the sales standpoint, not just when, hey, we have an existing customer relationship or an existing relationship. So
yeah. Yep.
Cool. I'm going to keep us moving since we're going to get into like, yes. Hayden, great question. We're going to talk about that here upcoming. So I'm just going to keep it waiting just a little bit longer. So, all right. So we kind of talked about the customer journey. We've talked about, hey, this shift in outbound from 25 of like, hey, this is the bad personalization into a much more kind of trust economy. One of the questions we get asked all the time is like, all right, what is the best in class tech stack look like to set up and optimize your outbound motion, right? And Christi, when you and I were talking about this, we kind of broke down outbound into kind of like 5 core buckets: research, writing, data intelligence, LinkedIn, and sequencing. Will you just kind of quickly, before we get into the tools themselves, walk us through each one of these buckets and specifically what do you mean? How are we thinking about this from an outbound standpoint? And then we can get into the tools of why you like it, what's better, all that type of good stuff.
Yeah. So really this just kind of follows like a workflow for building an outbound cadence. First, that research component is really, really important to understand your prospect, to find those relevant factors. For that, I mean, I use ChatGPT most commonly. You could use like Grok or Copilot, or I like pick an LLM. It doesn't really matter. By the way, did you know that you can personalize ChatGPT and tell it to like be more of a listener or more skeptical, or like you can prompt it to not always tell you that you're like amazing?
I keep telling Alex to, try and tell me more that I'm amazing, but he never does that. So
Yeah, I know, weird. Anyway,
Yeah.
there's some really cool settings actually that I've recently discovered, and it's helped with my research too.
I'm curious. So you're doing research, right? Again, thinking about the actual sequences themselves of like different sequences for different stages of the customer
Yep.
journey. What are some of the prompts you're putting in?
Yeah, so I typically use like OpenAI ChatGPT within Clay. So I'm going a little jump a column there, but we use ChatGPT OpenAI to primarily find buying signals. So what that means is like for one of our clients, they are a whistleblowing and like ethics and compliance platform. Some of the things that they really want to know is this potential customer a current client of this one company? Have they recently been fined for any ethics violations? Are they under FCPA monitorship? Like a bunch of really hyper specific signals that's only relevant to their clients or their prospects. We plug all of those queries into Clay and run them for every single person that we're reaching out to or every single company to see what it returns. So my approach is very specific to say like, okay, I've identified these 5 things that I care about. Then I'm going to draft a prompt for each one of these 5 things and apply that to every single person that comes in. Now, that's a scalable way. You could do it one-off, but that's what I like.
But essentially what you're doing there, correct me if I'm wrong, is like the 5 things or the 10 things or whatever that is,
Mm-hmm.
those are all related to essentially determining where the customer is at in their buying journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or at least get a picture, right? Like we can never know for sure 100%, but right. To get a picture.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the writing.
Writing. Okay. Too long didn't read. Don't use ChatGPT to write. Use Claude. It is far better and uses much more natural language. So I sometimes will use ChatGPT to like figure out a structure, but then I always plug it into Claude to actually do the writing. Now I will also say, do not copy paste what any LLM gives you into an email or a message. You still need to go through and edit, because no matter how you prompt it or how like good the engine is, it still just needs a human touch. So please, 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 please edit.
Could not agree with that more. The number of times I see that, it's mind-boggling. So yes.
Yeah. Then you.
Right.
I was going to jump. Okay. So then you've got the data and intelligence. So this is really, it comes down to like, now we need to find the people and we need information on the people that we're reaching out to. A lot of you know Clay. I really, really like it. Rhys, you introduced me to Scale Stack. So do you want to talk about that one really fast? Because I don't know it quite as well.
Yeah, so ScaleStack is a competitor of Clay. They tend to be a couple of like pros and cons. They tend to be slightly cheaper than Clay, and they tend to be better in the enterprise space, meaning when you have a prospect that sells into the enterprise space. So if your prospect is selling in the mid-market or the SMB space, Clay is probably the way to go. But if they sell in the enterprise space, ScaleStack is another good alternative, but similar, very similar to Clay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we use Clay to find emails, phone numbers, do all of our kind of data enrichment, find all those signals, find the context that we care about, things like that. Then when it comes to actual like other data sources, Apollo's kind of tried and true. It's cheap, so it's not too bad. And then I've actually not used Wisdom myself for data sourcing, but I've had multiple people tell me recently that it's really, really high quality and fairly affordable. So I would definitely recommend looking at that too if you're just looking for kind of a contact database. It's supposed to be pretty good.
Jared, you got a question, sir?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. So we have Apollo. We've evaluated Clay. We're trying to evaluate Clay in the near future when Apollo's up, because we understand that it's more comprehensive. But what I understand is Clay is very robust in the sense that a lot of teams need a GTM engineer, right? And if we don't have a dedicated resource to that, is it still possible to really truly build that out? Currently with Apollo, we've got an assigned rep that is a GTM at Apollo that's helping us build some of that out, at least to get started in this GTM process. So I'm just kind of curious on thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead, Christi. I got thoughts. But
yeah, I mean, my initial reaction is Clay is a little bit of a learning curve, but once you have it down, it's not too complex. There is a level of setup, I would say, that needs to happen with Clay, but I don't know. I'm not a GTM engineer, and I figured it out and I can run it. So I think it kind of depends on the complexity of what you're building within Clay. But for most people, setting it up and building some templates and like kind of just getting the general hang of it, it's not that bad. But I don't know, Rhys, you might have a totally different opinion.
No, I agree. So a couple of quick thoughts, Jared. It is a more complex setup, and part of it is like, what is the use case you're using it for? Because Clay can do a lot. And if you got questions, we're always happy to kind of jump on a quick call and just quickly, chat through. Oh, you're trying to use it for A, B, and C. Actually, John, who just posted in there, John is one of the team members on our end he's a go-to-market engineer / Clay expert, and he's always happy to chat through that. So, but once you get kind of set up, yeah, I agree. I don't think you need but again, part of it is kind of use case specific. So
sorry, John, we're not saying you're useless. John, you're great.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Thank
you.
Sorry, go ahead, Jared. Were you saying something?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. All right. Christi, talk to us a little bit about LinkedIn.
Yeah. So LinkedIn, this kind of comes back to the network and referral component of outreach today. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I know a lot of people have at least dabbled in it. There are some good features now with kind of relationship mapping and being able to see who's connected to who by second degree. So you can use LinkedIn Sales Navigator to really unlock who knows your target market and who might be willing to make an introduction. The other tool that I would recommend checking out is a tool called the Swarm. It is, I think, a really good, it's just a really good way to pull entire lists of second degree connections that fit your ideal customer profile and then see who's connected to them. So it's not super expensive. I think it's like $100 a month, for the lowest tier. Check it out. You can probably get 30 days free or something like that. But we are using that with our clients we're basically overlaying all of the contacts that we pull from Clay or any of the other databases. And we're overlaying that information with the network that we have on the Swarm just via an API. So we can say, okay, we want to reach out to this list, but of this list, who do we have a warm intro path to? Because if we're going to reach out, then we might as well do that first. So all of those warm introductions, those contacts actually float up to the top with our scoring methodology, and we can say, okay, well, we're going to go through these paths to try and get to them first before we send a message cold. So I really like it. Definitely take a look at it. And then sequencing, I can jump to that real quick.
Chat through sequencing real quick.
Yeah, so HeyReach is what I use for LinkedIn automation. Be very careful with LinkedIn automation. They can sometimes turn on the police sirens and lock you out if you start going too crazy on connection requests and sending all these messages. So just be cautious, but HeyReach is a really good and I think affordable tool if you just want to automate your outreach on LinkedIn. When it comes to actually sending emails or doing a little bit more like orchestration, you've got your typical players with Outreach and HubSpot. You do have to be careful with domains and deliverability with those two platforms in particular. I believe because of the way that they are configured. Rhys, you might know more about that, but
yeah, and we'll chat a little bit about deliverability here coming up. But on the HubSpot side, they just released their prospecting agent. We have another webinar that we posted. It's on our resource page. It's all about, we did deep dive into the prospecting agent as well as some other AI features. So like if you have questions about it, it's a great way to kind of leverage anything you already have existing today.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it yet, so I'll have to check it out too.
Yeah, you should.
And then the other two that I would recommend, these are pure email sequencers. Again, with email sequencers, not all are created equal. So when it comes to deliverability, these are the two I would recommend, SmartLead and PlusVibe. PlusVibe is a little bit newer and not quite as robust as SmartLead, but their back-end infrastructure is awesome for email deliverability. So those are the two that I would recommend looking at. And you can like push contacts straight into them from Clay. Like you can automate a lot of the flows with those two.
Cool. And I'm going to keep us moving, but just for everybody's here, like leveraging LLM like ChatGPT to kind of like understand where accounts are in the buying process, using Claude to write the sequences, data intelligence with the Clay Scale Stack Apollo to essentially say, hey, look, how do we kind of overlay some of this additional data on it? LinkedIn and Swarm to essentially be able to map prospects as we think about that referral network and then the sequencing. So just tying together that whole process. All right. So Christi, this is actually one of the handful of slides that did stay somewhat relevant from last time. This is all around kind of like that personalization versus relevance. Walk us through like what's the so what behind here?
Yeah, basically don't send 13-step sequences and like cold call the shit out of people. Okay. It's the old again, volume-based approach, and people just are inundated and they get really tired, and you're going to get sent or to spam or blocked, or people just don't have tolerance for the kind of inundation of salespeople in their inboxes and on their phone. So today, what I think the general approach is looking at your ideal customer profile from both an account level and a contact level. This is not just pure ABM plays anymore. We really have to understand buying signals where we can at both the company level and then also the individual level. Like maybe they are going to all these conferences and they're posting about it on LinkedIn, or like we want to try and find those individual things if we can. And then we want to pull all that information in and say, okay, knowing this context, what is the best way to engage? Do I send them a cold message? Do I call them? Do I go to my old coworker, John, who's connected to, the person that I want to reach out to and ask for a warm introduction? Like really trying to be thoughtful instead of just throwing them in a sequence and letting them run through step 1, email, step 2, LinkedIn connection, step 3, cold call. Like it's just a much more refined way that people are a bit more receptive to.
So be thoughtful in how you do outreach based upon where they're at in their journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems fair. All right. So you and I were talking about this. I asked you one of the questions. So one of the popular sequences back in the day was this thing called the Agoge sequence, which that was the 13-step multi-channel sequence. You think Agoge's dead and you want more simple sequence structure. So like, what is a good simple sequence structure? What should it look like? And kind of walk us through this.
Yeah, so I will preface by saying I don't think there is a perfect structure for every single company, for every single prospect. This is what we do, and it works pretty well, but there are caveats left and right, like play with it, test it, maybe try one thing one quarter and then switch it up a little bit and just see what works best for you. But when it comes to both LinkedIn and email, my approach is be brief, be brilliant, then be gone, and show up again next quarter. So we want to just do these very light but consistent touch points until somebody tells me to like get out of my face. So essentially what that looks like is on LinkedIn, it's a 4-step but 3-message approach. So connect request first. I typically do not put anything in the connection request in terms of a message. I just send the request. Some people, everybody has an opinion about it, but I would rather have a little ambiguity and have people accept it and then try and crack the door open, as opposed to saying, "Hi, I'm Christi. I run Howdy Sales. Do you need leads?" I feel like people are going to decline more. So connect request, no message, then wait a day, send an initial message, then again, space the other 2 out between a couple days. I don't know, 2 to 3 days is probably fine. More or less the same thing when it comes to email, although we are doing 4-step email sequences right now and spacing them out like 2 to 3 days. And then again, and then we stop. We are not continuing to pester if we have not heard back. We're just going to put that lead into another cadence in 90 days and see if it's a better time to engage.
And one of the interesting notes you brought up to me when you and I were chatting through this is like the days of like these multi-channel sequences of LinkedIn, email, phone call, all in one sequence. It doesn't matter anymore. And actually the over complexity of it is probably actually driving lower results. Is that fair?
Yes. And I actually had a really interesting thing happen with one of our clients last week, where we put the same lead into an email campaign, 4 steps. Then we put that lead into a LinkedIn campaign, not orchestrated, just fully separate, running in parallel. He said no on LinkedIn, but he said yes on email, and we booked a meeting on email. And I don't even think that prospect to this day understands that it was the same person, but for some reason, email resonated and LinkedIn didn't. So I don't necessarily think it's about like wasting time on the orchestration piece of all of that. Doing multi-channel is still fine because people pay attention to different modalities, but like you don't have to spend time like creating the perfect step-by-step approach.
The important takeaway here is like, even if you're going to simplify the modalities across your sequences, A/B test it, right? Because you're trying to meet the individuals where they're at. Yeah. That individual happened to be more email centric than LinkedIn centric.
Yeah, and whatever we said on email worked better. So.
Yeah. So speaking of email, we talked about deliverability. One of our favorite topics, and we get asked about it all the time. Like, oh, my emails aren't landing. Why is that? Walk us through, like, I know there's, again, not a silver bullet, but like, what are some of the best practices to make sure your emails actually land in somebody's inbox?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to run through this list, but please also understand that there is a lot of complexity to email deliverability, and even doing all of these things, quote, correctly, you can still land in spam. It is a bit of a black box. Ironically enough, I have someone who reached out about help for email deliverability, and my response went to his spam. And I was like, well, I think that's embarrassing, but we can still have a chat. So you do need multiple domains to send from, and you need multiple emails within those domains. So we, kind of depends on the volume and quantity, but you're looking at probably 5 to 10 different domains and many potential emails within those. It kind of depends on the second point. your email service provider split across those different inboxes. So highly recommend getting both Google and Microsoft accounts to send from, because they fluctuate a bit in terms of how strict they are on spam. So you do want to diversify a bit and not just have all Google inboxes versus all Microsoft, because if one gets hit, then you're kind of screwed. So a mix of email service providers is really important. And yeah, again, technicalities, but like if you're using Outlook, you have way more inboxes because it's a lower sending volume than Google. So I'm happy to chat through any of those details because it gets a little complex. You do want to warm up your inboxes. Still be cognizant that warm-up pools can be a little cluttered with really bad senders. So if you're using like Instantly is a specific email sequencer that everybody uses, and really bad senders are in there. And so you get lumped in with all the other bad senders. Private warm-up pools, which like Plus5 and Smart Lead have, are better ways to go to warm up your domains in those inboxes. And that just primes you for sending so that you don't hit, go on 50 emails per day per inbox. And all of a sudden both email service providers will probably flag you. It just kind of gets you ready to ramp up. Some of the other platforms, the sequencers, they do have dedicated servers for sending. That's usually better, but do some research and kind of figure out what works best for you. Slow ramp is super important. I go uber conservative, probably too conservative, but you have to ramp up your volume very methodically, or you will get hit by the spam police. And essentially what that means for me is when I'm launching a brand new campaign for a client, like we send 5 emails per day per inbox. That's it. And then we ramp that to like the next week, it's like 8 emails per day per inbox until we start getting some volume and we can toggle it up, increasingly week over week. But I would say it is worth it to go a little slower when you're first getting started, because it will benefit you in the long run. Email validation, you do want to make sure that emails that you're sending to are not invalid or like catch-all, because the more you send to those, it will go to spam. Always send as plain text, at least for the first 2 months is my recommendation. I pretty much always send in plain text. There's 2 ways to send emails. One in HTML, where you can include formatting and links and images, and one in plain text, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is worth it to send in plain text for sure for the first few months, because that improves your deliverability rates. Then if you want to, again, cautiously A/B test with links and images, you could, but I don't send any hyperlinks or anything until someone has replied to me. And then I've mentioned this, use AI to help you write, but please edit.
And walk us through, what are the tech platforms on the right-hand side?
Yeah, so Pork Bun, which is one of my favorite logos ever, is where you can buy cheap domains and with a really reputable source. So check out Pork Bun. Lead Magic is my kind of tool of choice to validate emails and make sure that they are, good to send. Email Guard and Glock apps are 2 really good platforms to use to see how your deliverability health is. So I think with Glock apps, you get like you get some stuff free. So check that one out. But it's basically a really good way to spot check. If you feel like there might be a deliverability issue, it can help you kind of diagnose some of those problems.
Long story short, if I'm summarizing this up, if you are sending a sequence that is an email-centric sequence, this shit is hard and you need to do it intentionally. And if you don't, this is the reason why everybody's like, Outbound's dead. It doesn't work. It's because people don't do it intentionally.
Yeah. You have to have some IT chops to do it now, quite frankly.
All right. So we've talked about tooling. We've talked about structure of the sequences. Let's talk about messaging. Like, what is the best structure? We talked about kind of this 4-step sequence on either LinkedIn and email side. Walk us through kind of like, what is the goal of each step? And then I know we've included some kind of examples here.
Yeah. So if we're focused on, let's say, like an email campaign, typically step 1 is just straight value. There's absolutely no strings attached. You don't have to talk to me. I just want to give you something interesting or provide an insight that maybe you hadn't thought of, or something that I know will be really, really helpful to you. So I know it's kind of small, but this is so the 3 in blue are actually real life messages that I have in a current campaign. And in 2 weeks, we've gotten 4 positive responses with these messages, one of which is turned into a meeting and is now an opportunity. So I am, yeah, just following my own rules here and sharing that. So you can kind of get a sense, you can read them all later on your own, but like the first one is really about, hey, I can give you something for free that might be interesting. Then step 2 is doubling down on that, essentially saying, hey, do you still want the thing I offered you in step 1? Here's some additional insights or like context or something that like is a good hook that might make it a more compelling message. Step 3, I usually switch up the call to action here, because if they haven't responded to the first 2, then I want to try a different approach. In this particular one, I'm offering again like a lead list essentially with a bunch of interesting enrichments that we can provide. And I'm also asking for time, but I'm not asking for much. And this is really because some people do want to jump on the phone. So like, I'm still going to ask, but I'm going to give first. Then the last one, what we have actually found is that a single question centered around the prospect's pain point is working really well. We're not recapping everything. We're not following in. We're not checking like, or following up, checking in, circling back. Like, don't use any of that language. Just ask a question and leave it and see what happens. We have one that we are, at the end, we put like sent from iPhone. So it kind of looks like you typed it up real quick on the fly. It's a little bit of a pattern interrupt. So these are working. We probably get the most replies on step 4, which kind of shocks me because it's so counter to what you would think would work.
And then you told me one of the other kind of tricks you're doing with step 4 is, particularly if there's an email sequence, you're actually pulling it out of the actual sequence and sending it as its own one-off email.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It's not a reply. Usually the subject line that we use is like update on company or question for company, like really quite vague, to be candid. So it kind of just looks like you fired it off the top of your head, like really quickly. I don't know. Something about it works, guys.
But the moral of the story here, deposit, withdrawal. You're not even asking for a CTA until the 3rd/4th step.
Yeah. And I really don't even ask for anything necessarily in that. Sorry, I'm reading my own language. In step 4, I don't always even ask for anything. I just ask the question.
Yeah. Which this kind of gets, again, back to this kind of like trust economy. So, All right. So I want to make sure that everybody has a few minutes. Kevin, I did see the question you put in the chat, but just quick 30-second recap of everything. We talked about the customer journey, right? One of the reasons why this is so important, understand where your prospects are on this journey. Is it, I don't know, I have a problem, discovery, awareness, engagement. Where are they? And then build the sequences around that. The difference between value-add content versus outbound, I friggin' hate being on social media. But Alex's are good marketing individuals like Rhys. You got to start doing this. So those individuals at your customer, at your companies, you want to help out the outbound team. Maybe worthwhile getting on this. Talked about the attention economy versus trust economy. We're moving to trust. Whatever we can do to drive trust, value add. Finding the right tech stack for where you're at in your journey. One of our general ethos, regardless whether we're talking outbound or the entire tech stack. Simplicity drives execution, right? So I know we talked through a lot of tech. We're not saying go buy everything. What we're saying is pick the 1 or 2 or 3 things that are right for where you're at. Simplicity in how you build your sequences. So we talked about a 3/4-step sequence, single channel, right? LinkedIn only versus email only. You don't need to make this multi-channel 13-step Agoji stuff. And then messaging tied to value-add content. All right. Kevin, you got a question. I'm going to make sure we got a handful of questions left here. So you talked about a reliable purchase list provider. Christi, thoughts?
Yeah, we got leads. Do you need them, Kevin? How's that for a pitch?
I'm on another meeting on another monitor.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'll reach out.
That's fine. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn or yeah, I'll
Yeah,
get
I
yeah.
got your website up.
amazing.
Cool.
Cool. What other questions people have? One of my superpowers is sitting in awkward silence, so I'm more than happy to do it for the next 2 minutes. So like, you know,
I can go. I
there
can
you
go.
go.
Hey, Hayden.
All right.
Hey, everybody. Hayden Graham here. My question is, Christi, you gave a great overview here. My question was, how do you think that this, my overall takeaway in terms of message was, at least at this point, machines have not replaced the person. And in some ways, the current state of the market is such that we're actually going away from over automation. Maybe that's a way of saying it, right? We're away from pure machine. Do you agree with that? And if so, how should people in our position try to best react to what the current state of the market is?
Yeah, my take on that is I don't know if I'm right on this. My hypothesis is that as everything is over automated and people are automating human connection, everyone's going to crave actual human connection more than the fake stuff. So my focus on automation is automating my process, but not the connecting point necessarily. So, I mean, we use a ton of automation. We've got data flowing from data sources into Clay, auto-enriched, and then it spits out all of that into like another interface, or we push it to wherever it needs to go. But when it comes to that messaging, that like, how am I actually going to talk to another human? I really focus on not automating that. I don't have Claude or anyone like auto generate messages. I personally do write all of my material. Same with like posting. You can use it for thought, like just to provoke some ideas or like, you know, get some creativity going. But I still highly recommend writing your posts or at least editing heavily, you know, a template or something like that maybe an LLM gives you. But when it comes to that automating human interaction, it doesn't work.
And you're
until robots start talking to robots, then it changes. But yeah.
And Christi, have you ever talked to Alex? It feels very similar talking to robots.
Yeah, but you're saying this, to be clear, not only in terms of the AE function, but also perhaps up funnel, like you're even generating the lead itself. That's what you're also referring to.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Does that help? Does that answer?
Love it, Hayden. Appreciate it. All right, we got time for one more question. All right. If you are all
Mike.
Man, he got me right before I was wrapped.
It's not so much a question as from the experience I'm seeing in the field today, understand where your customer is in their journey has become so important. And I'm seeing more and more examples of that whole servant-based mentality, you know, the deposit. And then boom, one day you're having a conversation with an opportunity and you have intersected perfectly with your solution into their particular part of their journey.
Could not agree with you more, Mike. I think you summarized it well. So
yeah, I have someone, I just sent him a proposal. He's been following me for a year. We've engaged on LinkedIn. He comments, I comment back, but I've never met him. He recently had me on his new podcast and then came to me and said, hey, I want to talk about your services. A year in the making, purely based on things I was posting on LinkedIn. But that engagement started long ago, and then he finally was in the right place. So yeah, Mike, it's 100%.
Thank you all very much for joining today. We know time is the most valuable asset, so I truly appreciate it. Heather, it was great to meet you, but if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. So Christi, can you tell everybody real quick, if they do want to find you, what's your email?
Yeah, it's Christi at howdysales.io, or you can find me on LinkedIn.
And if you have any other questions on the RevOps side, it's Alex at domestique.info or Rhys at domestique.info. Always happy to kind of jump on and shoot the shit with everybody. We got lots of other resources on the resources page about other things we've done, but thank you again. Appreciate it. Happy to answer any kind of follow-up questions and hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your Thursday.